that had ruled the stars for 3,000 years. No species had ever defeated them. No species had even come close. There was called Prime, and it was a place of nightmares. The gravity was 3 times stronger than most planets. Acid rain fell from orange skis. The ground shook with constant earthquakes, and the temperature could melt metal during the day and freeze blood at night. Only the strongest creatures could survive there, and they were the strongest of all. Evolution had shaped them into perfect killing machines. They stood 3 meters tall on 8 powerful legs. Their bodies were covered in natural armor harder than anything most species could manufacture. Their claws could cut through steel, and their venom could dissolve almost any material. They could see in complete darkness, hear sounds from kilometers away, and react faster than any computer. Commander stood on the bridge of his warship, the Endless Wrath, watching another conquest unfold on the. They were a gentle species from a water world. They had beautiful cities beneath their oceans and a culture built on art and music. They had never developed weapons because they had never needed them. They had surrendered in 6 hours. Add them to the records, ordered. His voice was deep and carried the clicking sounds of his species. Species number 4,891 has joined the Dominion. His second-in-command, a battle-scarred warrior named, made a sound of amusement. They always surrender so quickly. The soft species never fight. Sometimes I wonder if there is anything in this galaxy that could challenge us. Understood the feeling. He had commanded conquest fleets for 200 years. In all that time, he had never faced a true enemy. The galaxy was full of weak creatures from comfortable worlds. They built civilizations and developed technology, but they had never learned to fight. They had never needed to. They were different. They came from a world that tried to kill them every single day. They had clawed their way to intelligence through millions of years of brutal survival. When they finally reached the stars, they found a galaxy of prey. The Galactic Dominion now controlled over 5,000 species across a quarter of the galaxy. Some had been absorbed peacefully, accepting rule in exchange for protection. Most had been conquered by force. A few had tried to resist and had been completely destroyed. They were not cruel by nature. They simply understood one truth that the soft species never could. The universe respected only strength. The weak existed to serve the strong. This was the natural order of things. Commander, one of the sensor operators called out, "We have detected something unusual in Sector 7G. Turned his massive head toward the display. A star map appeared, showing a small yellow sun with several planets orbiting it. One planet, the third from the star, glowed blue and green on the sensors. "What am I looking at?" asked. "A commander. Gravity is within acceptable range, but the environment is extreme. Oxygen atmosphere at toxic levels, constant seismic activity, severe weather patterns covering the entire surface. Radiation levels from the star are dangerous." Leaned forward with interest. "Were rare. Species that evolved on them were even rarer. They had encountered only a handful in their entire history of conquest, and they had defeated all of them." "Technology level?" asked. "Primitive, pre-faster-than-light travel. They have basic space capability, limited to their own solar system. Chemical rockets and simple fusion drives. No weapons that could threaten our ships." "What do we know about the inhabitants?" The sensor operator brought up images captured by long-range probes. The creatures were strange-looking. They stood on 2 legs which seemed unstable. They had no natural armor, no claws, no venom. Their skin looked soft and vulnerable. They had flat faces with small eyes and mouths full of blunt teeth meant for chewing plants. "They call themselves humans," the operator reported. "They have been a spacefaring species for approximately 200 of their years. They have colonized one nearby planet and several moons. Population is approximately 12 billion. Made a dismissive sound. "They look like prey animals, weak, soft. This will be an easy conquest." studied the images carefully. Something about these creatures bothered him, though he could not say what. They looked fragile, yes. They had no obvious weapons or defenses, but they had survived on that meant something. "Send a subjugation fleet," he ordered. 20 vessels should be more than enough. Follow standard protocols. Give them the choice to surrender peacefully. If they refuse, begin pacification. "It will be done, Commander." As the orders were sent, continued to study the images of the humans. They were building things on their dead neighboring planet. They were mining asteroids. They were reaching out into their solar system with the desperate energy of a species that wanted more. He had seen this before in other species. The drive to expand, to grow, to never stop moving. It came from living on a world that was always trying to kill you. You either kept moving forward or you died. But all the other species had fallen to the... Some had fought harder than the soft species, yes. Some had even destroyed a few ships before the end, but they had all fallen eventually because none of them could match what Prime had created. They were the ultimate predators. They were the apex of evolution. The galaxy belonged to them by right of strength. 3 months later, the subjugation fleet arrived in the human solar system. They took positions around the blue planet called Earth and broadcast their demands. The humans had 12 hours to surrender. If they refused, they would take what they wanted by force. Commander received updates from the fleet as he continued his own mission in another part of the galaxy. He expected the humans to surrender like all the others, or perhaps they would fight briefly and die like the other species had. He did not expect what actually happened. He did not expect the humans to do something that no species had ever done before. He did not expect them to win. But that is exactly what they would do, because they had made a terrible mistake. They had looked at the humans and seen soft bodies and primitive technology. They had seen a species without claws or armor or venom. They had not seen what really mattered. They had not seen the 4 billion years of evolution that had created the most adaptable, most persistent, most terrifyingly creative species the galaxy had ever produced. They had not seen the millions of years of warfare that humans had waged against everything, including themselves. They had not seen the thing that made humans truly dangerous. They had not seen the fire in human eyes. They would see it soon enough. Captain Park had dreamed of first contact since he was a child. He had imagined peaceful aliens arriving with gifts of knowledge. He had imagined humanity joining a community of civilizations among the stars. He had imagined wonder and discovery and hope. He had never imagined 20 alien warships appearing above Earth and demanding surrender. The message came through every communication system on the planet at the same time. Television, radio, internet, emergency broadcasts. The alien language was harsh and clicking, but the translation was clear. People of Earth, you are now subjects of the Galactic Dominion. You will surrender your governments, your military forces, and your resources. You will accept rule. You will obey without question. You have 12 hours to comply. If you do not comply, we will pacify your planet by force. Resistance is foolish. You cannot win. Stood on the bridge of the research vessel Sunrise, watching the alien ships on his sensors. They were enormous. Each one was larger than anything humanity had ever built. Their weapons glowed with energy that his instruments could not fully measure. They were built for war in a way that human ships were not. "Sir," said Lieutenant, she was young, smart, and calm under pressure. "What do we do?" Did not answer immediately. He was thinking about his daughter back on Earth. She was 7 years old. She liked to draw pictures of rockets and dream about visiting other planets someday. He had told her that the universe was full of wonders waiting to be discovered. He had not told her that the universe might also be full of monsters. "Connect me to United Earth Command," he said finally. On Earth, the response to the alien ultimatum was chaos at first. Governments argued. People panicked. Some religious leaders declared it was the end of the world. Some people said humanity should surrender and hope for mercy. But then Admiral stood up and spoke. She was 63 years old. She had fought in 3 wars on Earth before joining the space program. She had scars on her body and steel in her eyes. She looked at the assembled leaders of humanity and asked them one simple question. Do we surrender? The room went quiet. I have studied history my entire life, continued. Every time humanity has faced an impossible enemy, there were voices saying we should give up, that we should bow down, that we should accept our fate. She paused. And every single time there were other voices that said no. That said we would rather die on our feet than live on our knees. Those voices built everything we have today. She pointed at the screen showing the alien fleet. Those things out there think we are weak because we do not have claws or armor. They think we will break because we are soft. They do not know us. They do not know what we are capable of when someone threatens our home, our families, our future. She looked around the room one more time. So I ask again, do we surrender? The answer came from every throat at once. No. What happened next was something that would later be called the miracle of 12 hours. Across the planet, humanity went to work. They had 12 hours to turn a peaceful civilization into a war machine, and they did not waste a single minute. In Korea, Japan, and China, factories that had been making consumer products switched to military production. Engineers who had been designing entertainment systems started designing weapons. Young people who had never held a gun lined up to volunteer for service. In America and Europe, the space programs pooled their resources. Mining ships designed to harvest asteroids were equipped with cutting lasers and nuclear payloads. Transport vessels were armored with whatever materials were available. Scientists who had spent their careers studying peaceful applications of technology now worked on ways to kill. In Russia and India, old nuclear weapons that had been scheduled for decommissioning were loaded onto rockets. Space stations were converted into weapons platforms. Every satellite that could be controlled was repositioned to provide tactical information. Captain Park watched the transformation from orbit. Ships were launching from Earth every few minutes. Most of them were not designed for combat. They were mining vessels, research stations, cargo haulers. But they were armed now in rough and ugly ways. Mining lasers that could cut through rock could also cut through metal. Asteroid deflection charges could also damage enemy ships. Nuclear reactors could be turned into bombs. It is not enough, Lieutenant said quietly. Even with everything we have, we cannot match their firepower. No, agreed, we cannot. Then why are we fighting? Thought about his daughter again. About the pictures she drew of rockets and stars, about the future she dreamed of. Because surrender is not who we are, he said. Because if we give up now, we give up forever. Because some things are worth dying for. The 12 hours passed. The alien deadline arrived. The fleet began moving toward Earth, expecting the easy conquest they had experienced thousands of times before. Instead, they flew into a wall of nuclear fire. The first human attack was not sophisticated. It was not elegant. It was simply every weapon humanity could gather, fired at once at the approaching fleet. Nuclear missiles, laser beams, kinetic projectiles, everything. 2 ships were destroyed in the first minute. 2 more were badly damaged. The aliens had never experienced anything like it. They had expected the humans to surrender or to put up a token resistance before breaking. They had not expected this. They had not expected humans to fight like they had nothing to lose. Because humans did not fight like other species. They did not calculate odds and retreat when things looked bad. They did not surrender when defeat seemed certain. They had something inside them that other species did not have. They had rage. They had spite. They had the absolute refusal to go quietly into the dark. The first battle lasted 47 minutes. Humanity lost 11 ships. the Lost Four. By any normal calculation, the aliens were still winning. Their remaining ships could still destroy Earth. But 4 ships lost was 4 ships more than any species had ever destroyed. 4 ships lost was impossible. 4 ships lost meant that everything they believed about themselves might be wrong. As the battle continued, as human ships burned and human soldiers died, something strange began to happen. They started to feel something they had not felt in thousands of years. They started to feel afraid. And they were right to be afraid. Because this was only the beginning. The war for Earth had just started, and humanity was just getting warmed up. The reports arrived at Commander's ship in waves, each one more disturbing than the last. He read them in his command chamber, his massive claws gripping the console hard enough to leave marks. The subjugation of Earth, which should have taken days, had turned into a nightmare that had lasted for over a year. "Explain this to me," he demanded. His officers stood before him, none of them willing to meet his eyes. "We sent 20 of our finest warships against a primitive species with no faster-than-light capability. How are we losing?" Fleet Commander stepped forward. He was younger than eager to prove himself. Now he looked broken. "Commander, the humans do not fight like any species we have encountered. They do not retreat when damaged. They do not surrender when outnumbered. They do not stop. All species resist at first. They learn eventually." "No, Commander, you do not understand." Brought up battle recordings on the main screen. "Watch." The footage showed a human ship, a converted mining vessel called the Iron Will. It had been hit by weapons multiple times. Its hull was breached in dozens of places. Atmosphere was venting into space. By any reasonable calculation, the ship was dead. But it was not dead, it was accelerating. The Iron Will flew directly at the cruiser Crimson Dawn. The aliens tried to destroy it, but the human ship kept coming. In the final seconds before impact, a single escape pod launched from the human vessel. Then the Iron Will struck the Crimson Dawn's engine section and detonated its reactor. Both ships were destroyed. "They killed themselves," said slowly. "They destroyed their own ship to destroy one of ours." "Yes, Commander, and this is not unusual. Human pilots regularly sacrifice themselves. Their damaged ships become weapons. Their escape pods have been modified to carry explosives. They fight until they physically cannot move anymore, and then they find ways to fight some more." Stared at the screen. In all his years of conquest, he had never seen anything like this. Other species valued their lives. Other species retreated to fight another day. Other species had survival instincts that told them when to give up. Humans apparently did not. On Earth, the ground war was even worse. They had landed thousands of warriors on the planet's surface. Each warrior was a killing machine, 3 meters of armored death with claws and venom, and reflexes faster than anything humans could match. In every previous conquest, a single warrior could slaughter dozens of enemy soldiers. Against humans, things were different. Lieutenant Minyu led a resistance unit in the ruins of. He had been a schoolteacher before the invasion. Now he was a soldier, leading 50 fighters against enemies that should have been impossible to defeat. "They are coming through the northern sector," his scout reported. 20 of them, maybe more. 20 warriors. By all logic, Minyu's unit should retreat. They should hide and wait for better odds. Fighting 20 with 50 humans was suicide. Minyu smiled. "Good, we have been preparing for this." The warriors moved through the destroyed city with confidence. Their sensors showed the human life signs ahead, clustered in a building. Easy prey. They did not notice the tripwires. They did not notice the explosives hidden in the rubble. They did not notice the chemicals leaking from broken pipes that their bodies were absorbing through their respiratory systems. The first explosion killed 3 of them instantly. The second brought down a building on top of 4 more. The chemical weapons, a mixture that human scientists had developed specifically to attack biology, began to affect the survivors. Their movements slowed, their vision blurred. And then the humans attacked. They came from everywhere at once. From buildings, from underground tunnels, from positions that should have been impossible to reach. They used guns and explosives and knives and anything else that could cause damage. They fought like demons. Minyu faced a warrior directly. The creature was twice his size, covered in armor, armed with claws that could cut through steel. It should have killed him in seconds. Instead, Minyu threw a chemical grenade at its face, blinding it. While it screamed, he climbed onto its back and shoved a knife into the gap between its armor plates. The knife broke, so he used his hands, tearing at the wound until he reached something vital. Minyu fell with it, exhausted and bleeding from a dozen wounds. Around him, the battle continued. When it was over, 18 warriors were dead. 23 humans had died as well. By normal military calculations, the had won, trading 18 soldiers for 23 enemies. But they could not replace their warriors easily. Humans could. And humans learned from every battle. They learned that armor had weak points. They learned that certain chemicals affected nervous systems. They learned that warriors, for all their strength, had never faced enemies who were not afraid of them. Fear, the humans discovered, was a weapon that cut both ways. In space, Lieutenant had developed her own tactics. Her squadron of converted cargo ships hid among the asteroids, striking at vessels and disappearing before the enemy could respond. She called it the bite, quick attacks that took small pieces out of the enemy over and over again. They called her squadron something else. They called them the ghosts. "We cannot find them," the fleet commanders reported. "They attack from nowhere and vanish. When we chase them, they lead us into traps. When we ignore them, they destroy our supply lines. They are everywhere and nowhere." Commander read these reports and felt something cold settling into his heart. The humans were not winning, not yet. They still controlled most of Earth's surface and dominated the space around the planet. Victory was still mathematically certain. But mathematics did not account for human determination. Mathematics did not account for a species that would rather die than surrender. Mathematics did not account for the look in human eyes when they fought, that burning intensity that seemed to say, "You may kill us, but we will make you pay for every single life." They had never faced anything like this. And deep in his ancient warrior soul, Commander began to wonder if his people had made a terrible mistake. The humans were not just fighting a war. They were learning, adapting, growing stronger with every battle. And they showed no signs of stopping. Sergeant Han looked at the scout ship sitting in the valley below and knew that what she was about to do was insane. The ship was small by standards, designed for fast travel between star systems. Intelligence reports said it carried a crew of about 40 warriors and, more importantly, a working faster-than-light drive. Humanity had been fighting for 2 years now. They had won battles. They had held their ground, but they were still trapped in their own solar system while the enemy could call for reinforcements from across the galaxy. That had to change. "The mission is simple," told her team of 12 soldiers. They were gathered in a hidden bunker 3 kilometers from the alien ship. "We get in, we kill everyone inside, and we capture that ship intact. Any questions?" Private raised her hand. She was the youngest member of the team, only 19 years old. "Sergeant, how exactly are we supposed to kill 40 warriors? We have 12 people." Carefully said, and with a lot of explosives. The plan was the result of 2 years of learning how to fight an enemy that was bigger, stronger, and faster than humans in every way. 2 years of finding weaknesses. 2 years of developing weapons specifically designed to kill. The attack began at midnight. First came the gas. Human scientists had discovered that respiratory systems were vulnerable to certain chemical compounds. The gas would not kill them, but it would slow their reactions and cloud their thinking. Steam released it into the ship's ventilation system through maintenance ports. Then came the cold, were creatures of heat. Their temperatures could melt metal during the day. Extreme cold affected them badly, slowing their movements and making their armor brittle. The team used specially designed grenades that dropped the temperature in targeted areas to far below freezing. Then came the humans. Was first through the door. She had trained for this moment for months, studying anatomy, learning where to strike, how to move, when to attack and when to retreat. She had lost friends to these creatures. She had watched cities burn. She had every reason to be afraid. She was not afraid, she was angry. The first she encountered was stumbling from the effects of the gas. Did not give it time to recover. She fired 3 shots into the gaps in its armor, then rolled aside as it fell, already moving to her next target. The battle inside the ship was brutal and close. The corridors were designed for creatures much larger than humans, which meant they had trouble maneuvering in groups. The cold and the gas had reduced their legendary speed to something humans could match, and the humans had something they did not expect. They had rage. Corporal Shin fought with a fury that terrified even his teammates. He had lost his entire family when the bombed Seoul. Now he moved through the enemy ship like a spirit of vengeance, killing everything that moved. When his gun ran out of ammunition, he used his knife. When his knife broke, he used his hands. Private, the youngest and smallest member of the team, saved all their lives when she spotted a warrior trying to activate the ship's self-destruct sequence. She threw herself at the creature, clinging to its back while it tried to shake her off. Her knife found the gap in its neck armor just in time. When it was over, 37 warriors were dead. 3 had escaped into the night. 5 human soldiers had died. 2 more were badly wounded. Sergeant Han stood in the ship's control room, her left arm hanging useless at her side. A claw had cut it nearly off during the final moments of the battle. Blood dripped onto the alien deck. "Sergeant," Private said, "we need to get you medical attention." In a minute, looked around the control room. Alien symbols glowed on screens she could not read. Machines hummed with purposes she did not understand. Somewhere in this ship was the technology that allowed them to travel between stars in days instead of years. "Take pictures of everything," she ordered. "Document every system. We are bringing this back to our scientists in one piece." 6 hours later, a human team arrived to secure the captured ship. They found Sergeant Han sitting on a pile of dead, holding a tourniquet around her arm with her teeth, refusing to move until she was certain the prize was safe. She would later receive the highest military honors Earth could give. She would also lose her arm, replaced with a mechanical one that she claimed worked better than the original. But more important than any medal was what her team had captured. Within 6 months, human engineers had taken apart the faster-than-light drive and understood how it worked. Within a year, they had built their own version. It was rough, ugly, held together with hope and determination, but it worked. Humanity was no longer trapped. Admiral stood before the newly built United Earth Fleet and felt pride swell in her chest. 200 warships filled the space around Earth, each one built with human hands using stolen alien technology. They were not as elegant as vessels. They were not as powerful. But they were enough. For 2 years, addressed her forces through every communication channel, we have fought and bled and died. We have lost millions of our brothers and sisters. The enemy thought we would break. They thought we would surrender. They were wrong. She paused, looking at the fleet she had helped build from nothing. Tonight we stop defending. Tonight we start taking back what is ours. Tonight we show what humanity does to those who threaten our home. The counteroffensive began at midnight, Earth time. Human ships appeared from faster-than-light travel all around the solar system, striking at positions before the enemy even knew they were under attack. Orbital stations fell. Supply ships were destroyed. Communication networks were cut. By dawn, the forces in the solar system were in chaos. By the end of the week, they were in full retreat. Commander received the reports with something close to despair. The impossible had happened. The primitive species that should have been conquered in days had not only survived but had turned the tide of war. And they were not stopping. They were coming. For the first time in 3,000 years, they were afraid. They were right to be afraid. The hunters had become the hunted. 5 years had passed since the first ships appeared above Earth. 5 years of blood and fire and death. 5 years that had changed everything. Commander stood in the ruins of what had been the command center on Mars. Outside, humans were landing, bringing soldiers to secure the last enemy stronghold in the solar system. The war for Earth was over. The war for the galaxy was just beginning. He could hear the human soldiers moving through the corridors, their footsteps careful but confident. They were coming for him. There was nowhere left to run. Thought about his long life. He had commanded fleets that conquered hundreds of worlds. He had watched species surrender at the mere sight of warships. He had believed, truly believed, that his people were the supreme predators of the galaxy, shaped by the harshest world into the ultimate warriors. He had been wrong. The door to his chamber exploded inward. Human soldiers poured through, their weapons trained on him. They were small, soft, fragile-looking. Any one of them should have been easy prey for a warrior. But did not move. He had seen too many of his kind die thinking that way. Lieutenant Colonel Park walked through the soldiers and stopped in front of him. She was 30 years old, though she looked older. War did that to people. Her body was covered in scars, and her left eye had been replaced with a mechanical one that glowed faintly in the dim light. She had been fighting since she was 25, since the first day of the invasion. She looked at him without fear. That was what struck most. Every other species he had encountered had shown fear when facing a. Even the brave ones, even the ones who fought back, had fear in their eyes. This human had none. "Commander," she said, her voice was calm, professional. "The war is over. Your forces in this system have been destroyed or captured. Yours is under siege by our fleets. You have lost." Made a sound that might have been a laugh. "How? I have asked myself this question every day for 5 years. How did you defeat us? We are stronger, faster, more advanced. Our world made us into the perfect warriors." Considered the question. Around her, her soldiers kept their weapons ready, but she seemed relaxed, as if she was having a conversation with a colleague rather than a defeated enemy. "You want to know how?" she asked. "I will tell you. Your world made you hard. It made you strong and fast and deadly. But our world made us something different. It made us adaptable." She began to pace slowly, never taking her eye off him. "You evolved to survive one world. We evolved to survive everything. Hot places, cold places, wet places, dry places, mountains and oceans and deserts and jungles. Our planet tried to kill us in 1,000 different ways, and we survived all of them." She stopped packing and faced him directly. "But that is not the real reason you lost. The real reason is that you have been at peace for too long." His mandibles clicked in confusion. "Peace? We have been conquering the galaxy for 3,000 years. Conquering weak species is not war, it is hunting. You forgot what it means to face an enemy that can actually hurt you. You forgot what fear feels like." Smiled, and there was no warmth in it. "We never forgot. We have been at war with each other since before we could write. We have been killing each other for 100,000 years. Every generation of humans has fought. Every generation has learned new ways to destroy." She stepped closer to him, close enough that he could have killed her with one swipe of his claws. She did not flinch. "You are apex predators. So are we. The difference is that we have been competing against other apex predators our entire existence. You got soft because everything was easy. We got harder because nothing ever was." Was silent for a long moment. Then he asked the question that had been burning in his mind. "What will you do with us? Will you destroy our species as we destroyed others? Studied him. Behind her, she knew there were voices calling for exactly that. They had killed millions of humans. They had destroyed cities. They had tried to enslave all of humanity. Justice demanded revenge. But humans were not only killers. That was the thing they had never understood. We are going to give you a choice, said. Something you never gave your conquered species. Surrender, accept responsibility for what you have done, and work with us to build something new, or continue fighting and face the consequences. Stared at her. In all his long years, no one had ever offered a defeated enemy a choice. The strong ruled the weak. That was the only law. Why, he asked, why would you show mercy to us? We would not have shown mercy to you. His expression softened slightly. Because we are not you. Because being strong enough to destroy is easy. Being strong enough to rebuild is hard. Because we want to be better than the universe expects us to be. She stepped back and gestured to her soldiers to lower their weapons. We are monsters when we need to be. We can be the most terrifying thing in this galaxy. We proved that, but we can also be something else. We can be builders, healers, friends. The choice we make defines who we are. She extended her hand to him, the human gesture of greeting, of peace. What do you choose, Commander? 50 years later, Ambassador stood before the Galactic Council. The chamber was filled with representatives from 300 species, all watching the human woman at the podium. In the back row sat a delegation, their presence a symbol of how much had changed. Half a century ago, began, humanity was nearly destroyed by those who believed that strength was the only thing that mattered. We survived, we adapted, and then we made a choice. She looked around the chamber, at the species that had once been slaves, now free citizens of the new Galactic Union. We chose to build rather than destroy, to protect rather than dominate, not because we are weak, but because we know exactly how strong we can be. We know what we are capable of, and we understand the responsibility that comes with that strength. Outside the council chamber, on 100 worlds, humans worked alongside aliens of every species. They were doctors and teachers, engineers and artists, soldiers and diplomats. They had proven they could be the most dangerous things in the galaxy. Now they were proving they could be something more. The galaxy had feared humans once. They had been right to fear them. But now the galaxy was learning something else about humanity. They were learning that the same species that had broken the empire was also the species most willing to help rebuild what had been broken. The same hands that had dealt death now offered aid. In the end, humanity's greatest weapon was not their adaptability or their persistence or their terrifying capacity for violence. It was their choice. And they chose to be better.